Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I wanted to bring to you episode 2 of podcasts that I'm loving right now. So if you're interested to hear about what I've been listening to these past couple of months, then just go ahead and keep watching. Alright, so if you are familiar with my podcast that I'm loving right now series, you'll know that I posted a video, I think it was last summer, maybe in June, I'm not sure, but I'll link it in the description box below. So I am really big into listening to podcasts. I feel like depending on which podcast you're listening to, they all serve a different purpose. In my last episode, I talked a little bit about the friend zone, my favorite murder, the health code, and the girls room. And so for this, I want to tell you a little bit about TK's Juicy Pod, Pretty Basic, A Classroom of Their Own, and then TED Talks. So the first podcast that I want to talk about is TK's Juicy Pod. And TK's Juicy Pod is a podcast ran by Taylor King, who is, I would say that she's an influencer. She's an Instagrammer, she has YouTube. She's, in my own opinion, in the realm of Remy Ashton and Alicia Marie, who coincidentally also have a podcast on my list this week. But basically, Taylor brings on guests to discuss whatever topics they want to discuss, usually in the content kind of realm of YouTube, social media, millennial, Gen Z, things like that. And they do these polls. They send her questions for polls, and then she runs them on her Instagram, and then they talk about the results on the podcast. And I binged this podcast. I'm telling you, I listened to probably every single episode in like 2 days, and there really aren't that many episodes, except today when I'm filming this on Tuesday, March 19th, she did just come out with another episode, so I was listening to that before I started doing this. So I would categorize this podcast as maybe like a entertainment, lifestyle type theme. I'm not sure. Probably more so entertainment. And then going along with that into my next podcast recommendation, it's going to be Pretty Basic, which is the podcast for Miss Remy Ashton and Alicia Marie. And Pretty Basic is... it's so hard to explain, but it's so good. So I do subscribe to Remy on YouTube, and recently I subscribed to Alicia after kind of like getting her vibe on the podcast. And it's kind of like you're just listening to a conversation between your friends. One thing that I will say about this podcast that I'm not like dead over is that they kind of are speaking about things that are not that relatable, because they do obviously live in LA. They are content creators, so they live sort of a different lifestyle than your girl over here in the Midwest, which, fun fact, rewind all the way back to TK Juicy Pod, Taylor's actually from the Midwest. She's from Indiana, and I feel like I was agreeing with everything she was saying until in the podcast today she said that men's volleyball didn't exist in the Midwest, which is not true. It's probably not as like, oh my god, this is so crazy, we love football, like it's not that big of a deal, but it definitely still exists. But anyways, I digress. So Remy and Alicia live in California, so they're living this California lifestyle, and they're talking about all these brand trips and things like that have to do with their content creation side. So I feel like their stories about boys and stuff like that are kind of relatable, but not as relatable. Regardless, I still really enjoy listening to them. I look forward to their podcast every single Wednesday, so definitely would recommend you listen to them. Alright, so the next podcast that I want to talk a little bit about, I actually just discovered within the past couple of days, but I've already listened to like 4 episodes, and I know that this is definitely going to be one of my favorites, and it's called A Class of Their Own, and it's hosted by Ty Cook, who is an educator. And I think that this is where my nerdy teacher side comes out, because basically he has interviews with teachers, and they're talking about, so far, well, my favorite episode that I've listened to so far, or the one that I found was most beneficial, was a teacher talking about her experience as a student teacher. And I found that this is extremely relevant to me right now because I'm transitioning into this next period, my pre-career of student teaching, before I actually get my licensure and began teaching. So I really enjoyed listening to her experience. There's tons of tips. The episode that I'm on right now is a teacher recounting her experience as a first-year teacher, which I think is also coming up here soon. So I think that it's a really interesting podcast with a ton of tips, and the episodes aren't too long. For certain podcasts, I do enjoy longer episodes, like Pretty Basic. I love to listen to that while I'm on my way to class or while I'm at the gym. But for a class of their own, I just feel like this is nice, short and sweet, and I've been listening to it before bed, which is weird, but it's like motivating to me. It gets me prepped for the next day, so really definitely enjoy that. And then the last podcast that I actually want to talk about shouldn't really be new to anybody, and it is TED Talks. So if you're not familiar with TED Talks, they are kind of like mini discussions, mini presentations by all different types of people. I've seen even students do it, whether it be recounting an extreme life experience, or just telling you like something simple, or teaching you a new skill or something like that. And I find that they are very motivational, they're inspirational, they're beneficial, they're educational. TED Talks, the podcast, is not to be confused with TED Talks Education, which is a specific realm of the TED Talks podcast specifically having to do with education. The podcast name is specifically TED Talks Daily because a new episode comes out basically every single day. So some examples of just the past couple of days for episodes have been today an episode called 3 Lessons on Success from an Arab Businesswoman that came out. That's about 15 minutes. These are all typically pretty short. One that came out yesterday, The Secret to Scientific Discoveries, Making Mistakes. Friday, How to Keep Human Bias Out of AI. I don't listen to TED Talks Daily as much because I'm usually so engulfed listening to my other couple of ones, but I actually think I'm going to save this one to read or to listen to later. It's called Our Dangerous Obsession with Perfectionism is Getting Worse, and it's 15 minutes. I'm going to have to listen to that. So those are going to be the podcasts that I have for you. Podcasts that I'm absolutely loving right now. I'm looking forward to new episodes every single time they come out. You know that I'm big on podcasts. I love listening to them while I'm working out, while I'm warming up for my workouts in the morning, while I'm getting ready, before I'm about to go to bed. Podcasts, I think everybody should integrate into their day-to-day life, whether it be just the entertainment ones or educational ones like the TED Talk. I'm still a stan for My Favorite Murderer. I know it's gory, but listen to me, y'all. If y'all haven't listened to it, y'all need to hop on that bandwagon, because I know that there's this obsession going around with true crime, finally. So if you're looking for a true crime podcast, My Favorite Murderer. Nothing to do with this episode, but if you want to know more about it, I will link my first episode of podcast that I'm loving in the description box below. As always, if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Comment if you have any questions. Subscribe if you're not already, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.